Allen Company, 47 years young and a proud sponsor, wishes OOIDA all the best as you celebrate 50 years.
OOIDA, representing America's truckers since 1973, presents Landline Now with your host, Mark Redding.
When it comes to fixing the truck parking crisis, all ideas are on the table, including one that would turn old drive-in theaters into safe spots for trucks to park. Landline Now's Ashley Blackford speaks with a man from Texas who is exploring that idea. As the EPA pushes strict new emission standards, a new report found that a majority of heavy trucks on the road are already near zero-emission levels. Alan Schaefer of the Diesel Technology Forum joins the show to tell us what that means, both for the current state of affairs and the future of diesel technology. And finally, the government is moving forward with a proposed rule to require automatic emergency braking, or AEB, in trucks. And OOIDA has some very serious concerns about that. I'll get an update from Bryce Mongeon of OOIDA's Washington, D.C. office. But first, the news with Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Mark. Our top story today. The Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association has some serious concerns about automatic emergency braking systems, and it's letting FMCSA and NHTSA know about them. Both agencies are considering a new rule that would require automatic emergency braking, or AEB, systems on heavy-duty trucks. In a letter to the leaders of both agencies, OOIDA said that's a bad idea. The association said the proposal would jeopardize their members' safety. While there are many operational concerns about using an AEB system, OOIDA said truckers are especially worried about the potential for false activations. Imagine an 80,000-pound truck unexpectedly braking to a complete stop for no reason, the letter said, adding, quote, for drivers who have years of experience and millions of crash-free driving, it is inconceivable that the government would require them to hand over control of their vehicle to a technology that may or may not be able to accurately detect a threat. The NHTSA and FMCSA notice of proposed rulemaking also includes significant caveats about the proposed reliability standards for AEB systems. OOIDA said that's further evidence that the federal government views truckers as an easy target for testing out new ideas and deploying unproven technology. The letter asks the agency heads to imagine a different scenario. Imagine if every American was told that their car must be equipped with and use at all times a technology that the government admitted might have negative safety effects. OOIDA acknowledged that FMCSA and NHTSA are subject to a congressional mandate to issue this regulation, but the association noted they're also required to consult with representatives of commercial motor vehicle drivers regarding their experiences with automatic emergency braking systems. OOIDA says that step was not taken. In closing, the association asked FMCSA Administrator Robin Hutchison and Acting Administrator of NHTSA Ann Carlson to pivot and listen to the concerns of truckers with regard to automatic emergency braking systems. OOIDA wrote that truckers are not opposed to a technology that will help improve their safety and the safety of other motorists, but until the agencies can offer assurances that this mandate will improve safety for all highway users, it should not move forward. We'll have more on this later and what happens next a little later on in the program when we're joined by Bryce Mongeon of OOIDA's Washington, D.C. office. And now an update on a couple looming strikes at some of the nation's biggest carriers. One has been averted at Yellow, for now at least. The Central States Health and Welfare Fund has agreed to extend health care benefits for workers at YRC Freight and Holland, two companies that are operated by Yellow. The ball got rolling on this development after Yellow failed to make $50 million in benefit payments to employees earlier this month. A strike in response to that was set to start today, but Central States has given Yellow a reprieve from the missed payments. A news release said Yellow has promised to pay its bills within 2 weeks. And the Teamsters and UPS are headed back to the negotiating table this week. Talks broke down earlier this month, but the two sides have agreed to resume labor talks on Tuesday. If they can't come to an agreement by July 31st, the 340,000 union members who work at UPS could strike. UPS and the Teamsters have already come to agreements on several issues, but remain apart on others. The Teamsters are asking for higher pay rates for part-timers and more protections for all workers. 11 states are participating in a single-day speed enforcement blitz this Wednesday. Most of the states are in the Midwest or upper Midwest. Extra law enforcement will be out on the roadways in those states on Wednesday, ticketing speeders and all types of vehicles, including commercial trucks. Officials say they'll be operating on a zero-tolerance basis. Wildfire damage on Vancouver Island in British Columbia is leading to some short-term changes for commercial truckers. Crews will be out for the next few weeks on Highway 4, removing loose rocks above the highway, which were affected by recent wildfires. Road closures and hours of service exemptions are the result. Through mid-August, drivers will face a number of detours. Truck drivers caught up in the mess are exempt from daily driving and on-duty time limits, mandatory off-duty time, and daily off-duty time on trips that meet certain criteria. Highway 4 will be closed at different times Monday through Friday for the next few weeks, but there will not be any closures on weekends. Heads up if you're going to be traveling through the Little Rock, Arkansas or Jacksonville, Florida areas next week. We've got two separate interstate closures to tell you about. First in Arkansas, where the DOT is shutting down all lanes of Interstate 30 in the state capital in both directions starting Monday night. The closures there in Little Rock are scheduled to run from 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. each night. Meanwhile, in Florida, bridge work will shut down multiple lanes of Interstates 95 and 10 in Jacksonville starting Monday night as well. Detours will be marked, so expect added drive times during the overnight hours for as long as crews are out. A man in Texas is getting creative when it comes to finding a solution to the truck parking crisis. Landline Now's Ashley Blackford explains.
Drive-in movie theaters are few and far between around the U.S., but Frank Sanzala has an idea to breathe new life into the once-treasured lots. He is Chief Corporate Development Officer with Contrade Holdings, LLC.
When I started the company, and I'm a part owner in this company, we decided that we were going to attack the biggest problem in the trucking industry now, and that problem is the truck parking.
Frank's idea is to convert old drive-in theater parking lots to safe, secure parking for trucks.
So we said we could do maybe the impossible to some, but everything is possible, and we're going to create truck parking places that are just for the Class 8 tractor trailers. It will not be a truck stop. It will be a truck parking with some amenities in it, with showers and toilets and some vending food and such, and shuttles to and from hotels or to and from restaurants. But it'll be 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a year of total security and safety for the truck drivers and the truck and the contents of that trailer.
To hear more from Frank, stay tuned to later in our show. For Landline Now, I'm Ashley Blackford.
Thanks, Ashley. A new version of the mile marker mileage and routing software is now available following the launch of the company's new app. In a news release, the company says the update provides more accurate pickup and delivery times while aiding in planning more efficient and precise routes. All road networks within the United States, Mexico, and Canada are covered by the software. And finally, drug smugglers will try just about anything to get their narcotics across the border. The latest idea involved cheese. U.S. Customs and Border Protection officers in Texas say they intercepted about 18 pounds of cocaine last week. That was concealed within several wheels of cheese. The cheese was inside a pickup truck coming in from Mexico. The driver, a U.S. citizen, even declared the cheese wheels, which were then examined, turning up the coke. The drugs and vehicle were seized, and the driver was arrested and charged. That's Landline Now News for today. I'm Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Scott. You can write and post a review of the doctor who performed your DOT physical through the OOIDA website, OOIDA.com. Just go to the main menu and under Resources, click on Certified Medical Examiner Review. Next, Ashley Blackford reports on a plan to turn old drive-ins into truck parking, and Scott Thompson discusses truck emissions with Alan Schaefer of the Diesel Technology Forum. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
You trust Prepass for more bypasses? Now let Prepass help with tolls. Prepass toll service means lower cost, one invoice for all tolls, and fewer violations. Created by truckers for truckers. Call 877-878-5970 or go to prepass.com.
Attention all truckers, Dean Michael, the tax doctor here. I want to talk to you about those dreaded tax problems. I know you want to keep on trucking and not even think about them, but let's face it, they're not going away all on their own. You need professional help. I've been helping truckers put their tax problems in the rearview mirror for years. truckers, I can help you too. Call me now for a free consultation at 888-557-4020 or go to mytaxhelpmd.com. It's like I always say, keep your eyes on the road, I'll keep mine on the IRS. 888-557-4020.
Landline now, welcome back. The lack of truck parking is an issue that continues across the country. Frank Sanzala is Chief Corporate Development Officer with Contrade Holdings, LLC. He joins me now. Frank, you have a unique business plan that would make for more truck parking. Can you walk me through what that is?
Okay. Well, as we all know that for every truck that gets parked legally in the United States, and there's 360,000 of those parking lots in the United States, we need another 11 for each truck that gets parked. So when I started the company, and I'm a part owner in this company, we decided that we were going to attack the biggest problem in the trucking industry now, and that problem is the truck parking. In 1994, we attacked truck tire problem, and that was the Pressure Systems International PSI automatic tire inflation system. Today, that is in 65 countries around the world, and it's got the largest amount of tire inflation. So I think we're very good at getting things done right. So we said we could do maybe the impossible to some, but everything is possible, and we're going to create truck parking places that are just for the Class 8 tractor trailers. It will not be a truck stop. It will be a truck parking with some amenities in it, with showers and toilets and some vending food and such, and shuttles to and from hotels or to and from restaurants. But it'll be 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a year of total security and safety for the truck drivers and the truck and the contents of that trailer.
And what's your history in the trucking industry?
Well, in 1983, I started a company called ITI from a patent, and that was a springless parking brake. Of course, the parking brake that has that heavy coil spring caused a lot of problems, both in deaths to mechanics that were working on them, and the fact that the spring would break and lock up the vehicle going down the road. So our product was a integral part of making it safer to park vehicles. I had that company for 10 years, and at that time, the inventor of automatic tire inflation came there and said, Frank, I want to show you something. I looked at it, and I said, this is the goose that laid the golden egg. You can inflate tires as you go down the road. I want to be part of that. And basically, I left that company, and I went to PSI as the first employee, and we started a company, and the rest is history for them. They're 30 years old now, and they were just purchased by Clarion as one of the best companies in the world to work for, actually. So with that being said, I was selling PSI all the way into China, not buying anything from China. And basically, the Chinese company, CIMC, the largest in the world for trailers and chassis, and now actually trucks too. They're in 17 different countries and have like 360,000 employees, I'm sure. But the idea is they invited me to be the CEO and president at my ripe old age of 64 then, and they gave me an 8-year contract. So my contract is up December 31st of 2022. And on January 1st, we started Contrade Holdings to do the truck parking facilities. So I've been around for 40 years.
Where did the idea come from for abandoned or old drive-in movie theaters?
Everybody, when I started telling them about it, they said, well, where are you going to find the property? You're not going to be able to afford property, and you're not going to be able to do this. You can't do that. But we live in a negative world, and I'm a positive person. So one morning, a Saturday morning, I woke up, and I thought to myself, drive-in movies. They have like a lot of acres and water and electricity. So basically, I Googled it, and there used to be 8,000 drive-in movies. There's 321 now.
Wow.
And 18 of them are along I-10 between California and Florida. So I said, maybe most of them are only open 6 months out of the year. So maybe we could talk to some of them. And we have. And there's a lot of interest. And basically, no one's ever went after them. A lot of them are abandoned now. There's one up in Wisconsin that is absolutely perfect between Chicago and Green Bay. And that's like 40 miles from each one of those places. So we've already Googled that one, looked at it from the air, and it looks like it'd be a perfect place to put parking. And our parking is designed by an architect. It's going to have the proper concrete that will last 10 years without any repair needs. So that's a big issue that other people aren't going to think about. They might just pave something with asphalt, and then the 18-wheelers will just beat it up. But we're gonna be 24 hours a day with lighting, with security cameras, and with attendants that work there. And basically, over the nighttime, there will be guards. So one way in, one way out. Some of the ones that are claiming to make maybe only 80 spaces, we're going to make 450 spaces per 15 acres.
What has the reaction been? Have you talked to any truck drivers about this idea?
Absolutely. I went through many of the, and I won't name all the names because I'll miss one of them and someone will be mad at me. So truck stops, and they don't like the truck stops. They like getting the food there. They like getting the fuel there, but you're going to have one chance in 100 to find a parking space at one of them. And if you do find it, they're not that secure because everybody can walk in and out and around your truck. You know, it's not the ideal place to park, but it is a place to park if you're lucky enough to find that space. Mm-hmm. And it's free because you're buying the food and you're buying the fuel there. But what we're looking at is having a small amount, but everything by reservation. So the trucker will be all set, and that's what we're calling these parking ventures, all set truck parking, because when you reserve a spot with us, you're all set for that day that you can drive from your last appointment or drop-off to your place that you can rest and not waste any more time on your hours of service, and you make money all the time. That's the big deal, and you're going to be safe, and you're going to have the amenities that you need to get through an evening or all day, depending on when your hours of service end.
Why did you have the desire to do something that would create more truck parking?
Because I get up every day and go to my hobby, which is making things happen, changes people's lives, and making things that are problems go away. Everybody else calls it work. I call it my hobby. So I'm not going to retire. I'm way too young to retire at 74 years old. I want to be able to do this and get it done for the trucking industry because it's going to change people's lives, make them better, and help the general population make sure that they get their goods that these truckers need to deliver to them for either manufacturing or for the grocery stores. One of my friends said to me, Frank, why do you always take the impossible? And I said, because it's never impossible. It's just not thought of. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm not a visionary or anything like that. All I am is looking to do the best I can for the trucking industry. Because, you know, in the trucking industry, once you're in it, you're never out of it. And secondly, I always tell people, and they say, well, why didn't you retire? I said, you don't retire in the trucking industry. You recap. You just put on another hat and you go out and stay with the trucking industry.
Where are you in the process of this? I know I'd read you're doing some fundraising for it.
Yes, we're doing fundraising for it. I worked earlier this week on putting together with two of the greatest website people in all of America, maybe the whole world. But basically, they are doing this, and we're looking at, by the end of this week, to be able to launch that website. And you'll be able to go to info@contradeholdings.com for all kinds of information. And it's really, really got a lot of information there. We are looking to partner with concrete companies, construction companies, and others that we've lined up to be able to make this as soon as we have the capital finalized. And we have some of the capital now, but I mean, it's the total that we need to do. We will be able to start and probably within 4 months, open up the first one, 6 months at the longest. But I've done my homework in Washington, D.C. with congressmen and women from Minnesota, South Carolina, North Carolina, Florida, and of course my home state here, Texas, to cut any of the red tape we need for permits and options. like that. So I think we're going to be very, very good at being able to get this thing on the road. And once we do one of them, in fact, we're going to do two to start off with, one right here in San Antonio and probably another one in South Texas near the border. San Antonio just came on board yesterday with Councilman Pierre that said we have to fix the truck parking problem in San Antonio. And the company just happens to be right here in San Antonio that can do it. So that's really a big plus for us, very big plus for us.
And how much would there be a cost for truck drivers to park there?
Yes, right now, here's what we're looking at. If you're just a walk-in customer, you call the 800 number and you make a reservation, and then we'll have members, okay? We'll make everybody a member like you have for a Hilton or a Holiday Inn or a Hyatt. Basically, we'll have that done, so we have all of their information. And that would be at $26 for 24 hours, okay? Now, if you're like an OOIDA member, you could get a discount on that as an OOIDA member or American Trucking Association member. So we're going to have the basics of anything else to make it easier for the driver, whether he's an owner-operator or he works for a different company or a larger company. They will basically have a benefit of that. Some big companies probably will buy 500 spots. I've already negotiated a few companies that said, hey, you build it, we'll get at least 500 spots across the United States, because we know that's how many trucks we have, at least, that aren't getting truck parking space properly. Mm-hmm. Yesterday, I got word on a couple of things where 3 trucks were parked on the side of the road. I'm not sure if that was in New Hampshire or I can't remember the state, but they were parked on the side of the road and a Greyhound bus hit them. Mm-hmm. And they were not parked unfairly, but they shouldn't have been on that highway. Yeah. If they had a place to park, they wouldn't have been on the highway. People were killed. This is a big problem, and this happens every day. So we're going to do our best to make 100 of these throughout the United States. And first off, when we did our business plan, we were going to do 2 per state. And right now, I could do 8 right here in Texas. I can do 4 or 5 in Minneapolis and St. Paul in Minnesota, because they banned truck parking just 3 weeks ago. So there's so much action coming on with this. And we're going to have competition, no doubt about it. But we will be the premier leader, and our model will be the one that it's going to be the cream of the crop, that's for sure.
Sanzala says he hopes to partner with other organizations in the industry to bring the most benefit to the men and women behind the wheel.
We already figured out what the truck driver needs and how they should be taken care of, because they are a valuable asset, not only to the truck themselves, the trucking company, but to the people that they deliver the goods to. Mm-hmm. So we're willing to work with you guys and everyone to make sure that you get the best parking facility. Unfortunately, not like a car. We can't go up in the air with truck parking and make it economical. Yeah. But on 15 acres of land, and we buy 20 acres, so right next door should be either a convenience store or a hotel that'll have at least 300 rooms to fill with truck drivers at a good price, too. So we'll try to roll it all in together. Mm-hmm. This is the age of ingenuity, and trying to do the best for everybody will pay off.
That was Frank Sanzala talking about his plan to turn old drive-in movie theaters into truck parking. For Landline Now, I'm Ashley Blackford. Stay tuned for more after this.
Firestone tires are for more of everything. More miles for every tire dollar, and more confidence in your fleet. At Firestone, we help fleets save with dependable value. Find your local Firestone dealer today at firestonetire.com/dealer.
Ready to make more money? Use a better load board. For a limited time, get 50% off Truckstop Load Board Pro. Just go to truckstop.com/go and enter promo code READY2023 when you purchase Load Board Pro.
Welcome back to Landline Now. While the EPA pushes strict new emission standards for heavy trucks, a new report is shedding some light on just how many trucks are already near zero emission levels. Joining us with the details is Alan Schaefer, Executive Director of the Diesel Technology Forum. Alan, thanks for joining us.
Great to be with you. Thanks for having us.
So this report, I think, really raised some interesting points, and we'll try to get to all of them here throughout our conversation. But let's start with the big takeaway here. Your report did find that a majority of diesel trucks on the road last year, 57% to be exact, were near zero-emission diesel trucks. Let's start with some basics here, and a real simple question here, just to make sure we're kind of starting on a good point here. When we say near zero emission, what exactly are we talking about?
Sure. What we're talking about is any truck that's been manufactured since the 2010 model year. So that was the sort of the bright line in the sand for the introduction of the selective catalytic reduction systems, the SCR, using the diesel exhaust fluid. So any truck that's been built after 2010 is equipped with that technology, as well as particulate filters, of course, which have been around since 2007. So taken together, that is our definition of near zero emissions, the most advanced diesel you can get.
And just looking at the number there, 57%, I mean, that frankly, and I'm obviously not an expert in this field, but that number, that percentage surprised me a bit, because we are now talking about a majority. And in just a year, right, it went up, 10 percentage points as well. Do you have any idea, is there any kind of reason that it did jump so much between 2021 and 2022?
Yeah, I think part of this is kind of the pent-up demand and some of the supply chain issues working themselves out. So purchases that were delayed or turnover of the fleet that was pushed back a little bit begin to gain some traction in last year. And I think that's really been the primary driver. We've seen a pretty steady increase each year of I guess this is the 8th or 9th year that we've done this. It's a pretty consistent increase of 3 or 4, 5% in some years. So I think what we're seeing, this difference this last time around, really is that supply chain post-pandemic surge.
And you explained there briefly off the top what is behind this increase. Diesel technology, we can thank that for a lot of these advances moving forward here. Can you explain, though, just how much that technology has advanced in recent years and how it contributes to, again, bringing more near zero emission models onto roadways?
Sure. And I think, for every trucker out there, just having the latest, most advanced technology really helps improve air quality and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. This newest generation of trucks that have now, they're really not that new. They've been out for well over a decade. We've got 12 going on 13 years of experience with the new generation of technology, and I think manufacturers have made some incremental improvements along the way there. But it's really this generation that we're in now. It's the first time, I think, in a couple of decades that truckers really got to get some fuel economy back from previous emission regulations. So the new trucks that have been out there using the SCR system are able to be tuned and optimized towards fuel efficiency, as well as achieving these super low emissions. So, it's, every time you get in and turn the key of a new generation diesel truck, that's contributing to helping reduce emissions for everybody. So it's really a success story. And I think, on the other side, though, there's that view that, 57% are the newest generation. So that means that 43% or so are not, that there's something older than that. And we drilled a little further into the data, and you can see that about 65% of all the Class 3 through 8 trucks that are out there operating today, 65% at least have a particulate filter on them. So that's, nearly 2/3 of those. So as we, talk about where diesel fits in the future and how it's evolved to be cleaner, these are some important points to keep in mind.
Yeah, and interesting points there, I think, because as I said earlier, there are a number of takeaways I think that any one person could probably get from this report. One of them being that we are making progress on this front. But, as you say, you could look at it as being 43% of trucks on the road not being near zero emission. We are getting there, though, right? We are making progress in terms of the technology, and the technology is only going to get better here, in the years and obviously decades to come. So, are you kind of more a glass half full guy with all of this, or a glass half empty? It sounds like you're more a glass half full kind of guy when it comes to, where we're headed. It sounds like.
Oh, 100%. Glass half full, actually more than half full. And, our organization represents diesel engine and equipment manufacturers and fuel producers and suppliers to the industry. And so all of our members and all the folks that are making trucks today, they're all dabbling in all these different technologies: electric, hydrogen, fuel cell, renewable natural gas, et cetera. So, it's pretty clear that the landscape is evolving to have more diversity in the fuels that power trucking. But, our research that we just looked at really, shed some light on just how solid diesel is in terms of this sector. I think, looking at it, just the largest Class 8 trucks, almost 97% are diesel powered, and only about 1% are CNG and 0.2% are electric nationwide, and the rest are gasoline or something else. So, you kind of get the sense that, diesel is really the fuel that powers the trucking industry, as everybody knows, and is likely to stay that, I think, for quite a good while due to a whole handful of reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned regulations earlier, and that's one viewpoint I kind of keep coming back to when looking through this information, especially with the lens of these new EPA rules about zero-emission vehicles that are going into effect over the next several years. They're pushing these new regulations, but at the same time, it would appear, as we're kind of talking about here, that we're already perhaps on the right track with regard to reducing emissions just with the trucks that are out there right now. I wonder what your perspective is and whether you think this is regulation that is going to drive, progress here, or it is driving progress, or if it is the manufacturers that are kind of always looking for, new and better and more efficient and everything, or maybe it's a combo of both. Just your perspective on what we're seeing out of the EPA.
Sure. Well, I think, EPA is playing this in a couple different ways. If we look at policy broadly, you have to say that this administration has definitely put its finger on the scale in favor of electrification, given the substantial investments that are in the Inflation Reduction Act and some of the other policies from the administration in the recent couple of years. That said, EPA has made, I think, traditionally more of a technology-neutral approach when it sets standards, and the recent nitrogen oxide standards that will take effect in 2027 are a pretty good example of that. They're not, sort of singling out diesel, recognizing, of course, most of the trucks are diesel, so these are primarily standards that do apply to diesel, but also to other compression ignition engines. So I think, EPA has tried to be technology neutral for the most part in setting of these standards, but the other government policies definitely pushing harder on electrification and other zero-emission technologies. So I think for manufacturers, they're in a kind of an interesting time, which is, they've got sort of a solid foot in the current world, which is mostly fossil fuel driven, right? And then they've got another foot in this new cleaner energy, cleaner fuels world of these alternatives and zero emission technology. And diesel is a technology that overlaps both of those. It's kind of squarely in the middle. And I think that, we do see the evolution of technology and manufacturers wanting to offer their customers, ways to save money and be more efficient at trucking, which is, what they do. And I think that's important. Folks need to have the right kind of tools to do their job. And, the trucking industry is one that, folks are hardworking and need to have the best technology to enable them to be successful and to get the freight delivered. And, diesel is a technology that this industry is really built around. When you think about it, it's, the range of trucks, the stopping and the sort of the hub and spoke systems for some of the carriers. A lot of factors go into that that could be changed with some of these new technologies, and not necessarily maybe for the better. They would be different. And so I think manufacturers are, wanting to offer and take advantage of some of these new innovations in technology. deliver more choice and solutions for their truckers and their customers. And that includes another advanced generation of diesel.
Yeah. Is there anything, out there right now, anything that's being worked on or any kind of prospects that you are seeing that you think, oh, wow, this is really going to, change the game or change the way we look at things? In terms of technology, again, we seem to be heading down the right path here. Anything kind of excites you about what may be down the pike here?
Well, I think, a couple things. And the biggest one that should be on all of our minds is the fuel. And as we think about ways to reduce carbon and other emissions from the trucking industry, which is really, when you get right down to it, what's trying to happen here, there are a whole range of ways to do that. And one of the ones we've just mentioned is, going to some zero-emission technology. And that means zero tailpipe emission, but somewhere the fuel has to be sourced and provided. So there could be some questions about that. I think on the existing fleet side, and even for the new generation of diesels, I think we're going to see a lot more interest and use of renewable biofuels. And right now, if you're on the West Coast in California, particularly, or Oregon or Washington, you're in kind of the low carbon fuels corridor, if you will, where there's pretty ready access and, in fact, requirements that these renewable biodiesel fuels be blended into the mainstream diesel fuel pool. And in some can actually acquire the 100% renewable diesel and put that right in the same diesel truck without any changes at all to the fueling system or the infrastructure or how you drive or where you fuel. So there's a lot of, I think, advantages of these renewable low carbon fuels that are really coming on strong. And I think that's going to play a key role in the trucking industry in the future. I think that is, on the one hand, quite exciting. But for the diesel engine itself, I think, the next round of diesel looks like an evolution from where we are today. So it's not, I would say, revolutionary. Don't expect necessarily a lot of new emissions control technology. I think what we're seeing is further refinement, better packaging, better efficiency, better performance of the selective catalytic reduction and particulate control systems. The new standards are going to require that those work at all kinds of operating loads and speeds and temperatures. So they'll be more efficient at controlling emissions as soon as the key is turned. So I think that is going to be a key part of the future for diesel. And some of the new trucks, I suspect we're going to see some of these technologies that you might be familiar with in your cars today. Things like cylinder deactivation. So if you're cruising highway, you got the cruise control set, on 62 or wherever you're at. Do you need all 8 cylinders to keep moving that truck, or can you get by with just 4? And those other cylinders being deactivated allows less fuel to be consumed and fewer emissions. So I think that's one of the more exciting and simplifying kind of technologies that we're likely to see in new generation trucks. But there's definitely a lot of work going on there. So I guess the message is stay tuned.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's an exciting time, fascinating stuff. As you said there, evolution, maybe not revolution. So lots to keep our eye on, lots to think about here. Alan, we appreciate your time. We encourage everybody to go to dieselforum.org to check out this report for themselves. And hopefully we'll talk to you again soon. We appreciate it.
Great to be with you. Have a good day.
Our thanks to Alan Schaefer of the Diesel Technology Forum. Stick around. Landline Now is back in just a moment.
For can't miss accuracy, weigh your truck on a CAT scale.
When you weigh on a CAT scale, you get a no excuses guarantee. You can now save time weighing by using your smartphone. Find out more at weightmytruck.com.
Since you started, what you've loved about trucking is the freedom. Heading out on your favorite route, a good driving song, and thinking about truck insurance. Well, maybe not that last one. That's why we're here. At OOIDA, we have a full range of truck insurance products, expert advice, and great customer service, helping you get the right coverage for your operation. Go to OOIDA.com, because your job is to drive. Our job is to help with everything else.
It's tested and proven. Burn 2.1% less fuel when you balance all wheel ends with Centromatic. Call 800-523-8473 to get the OOIDA discount.
Landline Now. Welcome back. The government is moving forward with a proposed rule to require automatic emergency braking, or AEB, in trucks, and OOIDA has some very real concerns about that. Here with an update is Bryce Mongeon of OOIDA's Washington, D.C. office. Bryce, how are you doing?
Mark, I'm good. How about yourself?
I'm doing all right. Let's start with this proposal. This is by, as I recall, two federal agencies, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. What exactly are they proposing?
Yes, so the FMCSA and NHTSA are meeting their obligation under the recent IIJA, or the Bipartisan Infrastructure Bill, to issue an automatic emergency braking mandate for heavy-duty trucks. Basically, it is what it sounds like. It's a requirement that all newly manufactured heavy-duty trucks be manufactured with an AEB system and have that AEB system in use.
Okay. Now, OOIDA has written a letter to the two agencies, and before we get into the meat of that letter, first, why did they choose to speak through this letter? Why did they send that now instead of just waiting for making formal comments on the proposed regulation?
Yeah, no, thank you that's a really good point and a really good clarification, is that the letter we're sending today, it's not our formal comments on this, but we thought it was really important to speak out now. Because after we took a look at what the agency has proposed so far, we're really concerned about it. And especially because the IIJA required that the agency consult with truckers and consult with representatives of drivers before issuing this mandate. And so, given that Congress specifically called out for truckers to be consulted as part of this, we think it's really important that the agencies do that. And from what we've seen in the proposed rulemaking, we think it's pretty clear that hasn't happened yet. And before this goes any further, we want to make sure that the agency is addressing these concerns.
Obviously, they know of that requirement as well. What are they saying about that?
What they're saying is that the work that they've been doing so far is meeting the requirement to consult with drivers. So they cite different outreach initiatives to truckers as an example of the way they're soliciting feedback on emergency braking systems, on AEB systems. They also mention that the comment period itself is an opportunity to solicit feedback and take into consideration feedback from drivers and from motor carriers. So basically what they're saying is, how we read it, is what we're doing so far should be good enough to meet these requirements.
But obviously, OOIDA doesn't think that it goes far enough.
Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of gets into the heart of our letter here, which is, if you read what's included in the proposal, and specifically if you look at what the agencies are proposing to test these AEB systems, or what's going to be like the minimum certification threshold for these systems, these aren't anything that drivers would want to sign off on.
Well, let's talk about some of the concerns there, and there are quite a few that were brought up in the letter. Why don't you maybe just cite for us what you think the chief concerns are that are expressed in that letter?
Yeah, and I think the major concern is that it's always going to be about safety for drivers. It's that, will there be false activations with these AEB systems, and what are the agencies doing to make sure that these systems don't have false activations? And the other concern is, how are these systems going to hold up over time? What kind of wear and tear will be put on them, and ultimately, will they continue to function as they're supposed to? So with regard to, the false activations, what FMCSA and what NHTSA have offered is a pretty, it's not too reassuring. Basically, they say that the proposed standards are not comprehensive nor sufficient to eliminate susceptibility to false activations. In other words, it seems like the agency is happy to put forward this rule while still recognizing that there's still pretty serious risks out there, and there's still pretty serious concerns. And for any driver who hears that and thinks, well, here's a system that, we're really not sure. Yes, this kind of gives us some sort of confidence that it'll work well, but, there's really no way to know. that doesn't sound like any way to go about a rulemaking, or that's not reassuring at all.
Well, and isn't there an investigation by NHTSA underway right now into this very issue?
Yeah, and that's exactly it. Yes. And so we're trying to figure out how can you move forward with a rulemaking on this technology when one of the agencies that's part of this rulemaking is trying to figure out what's even happening with the technologies that are out there already. So at a bare minimum, you would think you'd want answers to this investigation before moving forward with the rulemaking.
Well, there's a lot of other issues, of course, identified in there, reliability being one of them.
Yeah.
What are the big, the agency's indicated some pretty significant caveats about that. Can you offer us some examples?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really does. It's hard. It almost seems unbelievable, but it comes back to the fact that they're almost saying it's really difficult to come up with the standards that would address kind of the range of circumstances that drivers would see or that these systems would encounter. And it's also what they're saying is it's difficult to understand all the potential negative risks or negative safety consequences. So again, it's just really hard for us to wrap our heads around when these concerns and shortcomings are just kind of thrown out there. But because Congress has mandated this as part of the infrastructure bill, the agency is essentially kind of saying, well, but we've got to do this anyway to satisfy the requirement that we move forward with this mandate within 2 years. And that gets back to one of our other chief complaints about this is, the agency we recognize, or the agencies we recognize, they're caught between a couple different conflicting requirements. They have to issue this mandate, but Congress also said you have to listen to drivers as part of this mandate and make sure that it's going to be safe. So what we're saying is when given the option between choosing between that 2-year deadline or making the deadlines on time or listening to drivers and making sure that the technology is done correctly, why not, if you're going to have to get something done, why not err on the side of caution and make sure that it's done correctly? And again, that gets back to the frustration. Too often, whether you're talking about, the other thing that comes to my mind is like a vehicle miles travel tax. It's always talked about, let's stick it on truckers because the technology's there and it's kind of the easiest place to figure it out, and it's the easiest constituency to squeeze because, it's not the general public. And this is sort of similar, I think, because given the choice between potentially angering, the quote unquote general public by missing a deadline on a mandate or and angering truckers, or deciding, erring on the side of caution, listening to truckers, they're choosing, I think, to move ahead to try and get it done under that timeline. So it kind of gets back to that bigger picture of safety agencies need to be listening to the people who are out on the road, who will be required to use this technology and whose safety is going to be at risk if it's not done correctly.
Well, there's a real difference, too, between how this is being handled for cars versus large trucks.
Yes, I think that there's a lot more certainty that the agencies, or I shouldn't say agencies, but, that NHTSA is providing in the case of passenger vehicles. With the rulemaking that they've put forward for heavy-duty vehicles, that what sticks in my mind is that insufficient and not comprehensive standards. That's just something that I can't imagine flying with the general public.
Okay. Well, I'm afraid we've run out of time here, Bryce, but I want to thank you very much for the information. It's certainly very important.
Yes, no, appreciate it. Thank you.
I've been talking with Bryce Mongeon of OOIDA's Washington, D.C. office. And folks, if you want to make your comments on this proposed regulation, you can do it very easily by going to the website fightingfortruckers.com. In the meanwhile, you can also call your members of Congress about this and other important issues. The phone number is the U.S. Capitol Switchboard at 202-224-3121. That's our show for today. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
I'm a dad,
a son,
a husband,
wife,
I'm a writer,
photographer.
I farm.
I'm a veteran.
I love old cars, fishing,
my kids,
Chrome.
And I am
a professional truck driver.
And together we are OOIDA.
OOIDA was founded by truckers to stand up and speak on behalf of truckers. We've done that by combining the individual voices of our members into a single, powerful voice. Protecting your interests, defending your rights.
Join us!
Make your voice heard. Join OOIDA, the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association. Call 1-800-444-5791 or visit OOIDA.com.